welcome back. And welcome back to Open Your Eyes. We are moving into our second conversation for this morning. And we have with us, John, the representatives of the Belize Forest Department. And they're here to talk to us about the restoration strategy and, of course, how that will fit into this week's line of activities and discussions. And, of course, opportunities for investment. Joining us in studio in Grand Caribe. In our Grand Caribe studio, we have Miss Yanira Pop, who is the forest officer at the Belize Forest Department. Good morning.
Good morning.
And we have right next to her, Miss Minerva Gonzalez, who is the landscape restorations officer, right, at the Belize Forest Department. And lastly, Miss Florencia Guerra, who is also a forest officer in the Sustainable Forest Management Program. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning and welcome, ladies.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's nice to have you. You know, very important we're having these discussions throughout this week, you know, joined by other sister countries in making sure that we move forward together as one particular area. Of course, I'd like to start with you, Ms. Yanira, in terms of your role being a part of this meeting throughout this week.
Okay, good morning once again, and thank you for having us here. Well, we'll start and we'll try to explain the entire process as to how we as a department started to work and started to operate and reach where we are with this week's launch of the National Landscape Restoration Strategy. So my role in this entire strategy started in 2019 when the Forest Department pledged in Cuba to commit to this bond challenge, which is a global challenge, whereby we initially it started with the pledge of 150 million hectares globally to reforest or to replant, to do all different types of actions so that we can restore degraded lands. From there, we pledged. We are the first Caribbean country, I must say, that did not pledge a number, but we pledged our commitment. Yes. So from 2019 to roughly 2021, we had the implementation of a Rome methodology, which was spearheaded by IUCN and WRI along with the Forest Department, whereby we had consultations throughout the country. We included gender, we included youth, we included both the local community, we included the private sector, the conservation sector. We tried to make a multi-sectorial national roundtable.
Everyone is involved.
Yes. And what we did throughout those 2 years is to really get the input from the people as to highlight what areas are really degraded.
Yes.
What areas are priority to them that we need to restore. So that process then led us to what was the bond challenge, whereby we had the results of the entire methodology basically gave us a map that showed the different priority areas that we had. So that was a foundation that we needed as a country. Based on that, then we came in as a department with other government agencies, and then we decided that out of the results, which was 340,000 and something hectares overall identified, we prioritized 130,000 hectares.
Okay.
Therefore, in July 2021, our minister proudly pledged at the Bond Challenge meeting that Belize is committing 130,000 hectares, of which we have 80,000 in the agro sector, and then the remaining 50,000 is within the forest sector.
Wow.
And so that is the process as to how we went doing this entire to reach where we were to the Bond Challenge. Right? So this one of the things that we must highlight is that this is a multi-sectoral approach. This is a participative approach. And so thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And so that is very key. So this is something that was built using the opinions from everyone.
Wow.
So the results that I said, one was the priority map. 2 was that it identified certain activities that we can implement in the priority areas. It gave us a cost-benefit analysis so that we can decide what opportunities there is for investment, how much we need to invest as to get from where we are now and to improve. So that was the foundation, I would say, that what led us then to our national landscape restoration strategy.
And I know Minerva is going to jump right in here with us to talk about strategy.
So while the ROAM process, which is the acronym for Restoration Opportunities Assessment Methodology, was opinion-based from the participants, or this participatory approach that we took with all the other, with all the parties that were involved, it was also science-based. So it was compared to land use data through GIS technology, through different, whether it was man-made or natural disasters, threats, risks, and this entire analysis took into consideration the degraded areas, degraded areas that can be restored. So it was a combination of both the participatory approach and science-based. And we are proud to say that we are the only country in the region that pledged based on scientific results.
Wow.
It was not a random promise of, oh, we're going to restore 100,000 hectares. No, it was based on this scientific analysis that we went through. So then the Bond Challenge Pledge was the initiation of how we were going to develop our national landscape restoration strategy. And this is the document that we will use as a roadmap to implementing these restoration actions depending on the level of degradation of the lands. And I must highlight that when we say restoration, we don't mean just planting trees. Restoration encompasses activities that will bring back the functions of the ecosystem, will bring back all the benefits that we have, what we call ecosystem services, like clean air, good soil, clean water, and those sort of benefits that we receive from our ecosystems, from our forests, and that we can get back from restoring those degraded lands.
And where are we with respect to the restorative actions? Are we making strides? Are we losing stride at this particular point? Where are we?
We are on the road to gaining momentum. We just started a pilot project under this same restoration strategy, National Landscape Restoration Strategy. Our pilot project encompasses the general objectives of the strategy. So we're aligning it with everything that we have promised under the Bond Challenge to implement it now on the ground. So we are working with the Yaksha Conservation Trust in the Maya Mountain North Forest Reserve, doing restoration of some areas that were previously degraded through either cattle ranching, fires,
Mining,
agricultural
mining,
clearance. And we're bringing back the forests in there so that they can serve the ecosystem benefits that we so desperately need. So it also includes a combination of agroforestry practices, which is agriculture and forestry. And it's a good balance that we want to have. And I know Ms. Florenza will talk more about it, because at the end of the day, we have to realize that we have to balance both actions that provide food for us, which is agriculture, and those actions that provide the other ecosystem services, which is having healthy forests.
All right, and then we also introduced Florencia. Florencia?
Yes, so my colleagues basically spoke about how all of this impacts us as a country nationally, but we also have regional initiatives. And one of the regional initiatives is the AFLO 2040 initiative from the STICA region, which includes all the Central American countries, including the Dominican Republic. And the commitment from the region is for 10 million hectares. So the restoration of these degraded ecosystems, and our 130,000 hectares that my colleagues have been speaking of, which is our commitment, feeds into this larger 10 million hectare goal that the region has. And so what the AFLO initiative gives to us as a country is it is the dialogue space for agriculture department and the forest department, which are key players, because as we know, one of the drivers of degradation or deforestation in our country is agriculture. But at the same time, we don't want to, just say that we are not going to proceed with our culture. We're not going to, we're not saying that. We're trying to find this balance in that we're looking at techniques, like my colleague mentioned about agroforestry. We also have climate smart agriculture techniques. And so regionally, we have countries that have had, initiatives nationally within their own country space. And so the dialogue is that we learn from them. We are able to get what their experience was and see whether or not it applies nationally, and there is that technical capacity and exchange among countries, which is very essential. It's not just Belize, you know, having these initiatives and on our own trying to meet this goal, but, you know, having the other countries assist us with this, and it really being an integrated approach regionally, and it gives a more bigger picture as to how this 130,000 hectares would complete that goal.
Ladies, I mean, I applaud the initiative. I really respect the fact that we have been able to make this pledge and stand by it based on our own research. How are we balancing investment opportunities though? And I don't just mean local or I mean foreign investment. How are we able to sell land and to ensure that it's not going to, you know, wipe away all of this wonderful progress that we've been making over the years?
So the general idea is that we have found incentive-based methods in order to have farmers be able to use their land for agriculture, but also, like I mentioned before, have that forestry component.
Yeah.
So there are many examples in country occurring already. We have teak plantations. Teak is a kind of lumber that is exported, but there's citrus in between the rows, and they have a secondary income while the teak is still growing as trees that they will be able to export in 20 years. Yes, that is just one example. There are many other examples in our strategy, in the National Landscape Restoration Strategy. It's a very long word. That we have highlighted as incentives for different sectors. The citrus sector can incorporate different kinds of crops or products that they can use or plant in that same land that they're already using for many years and will continue using them for years to come, but they will also have that secondary profit or income as well.
Which of course is that's a clever mix, because if you know that you know, we're planting teak, it's going to be about 20 years, but we're still reaping from the citrus that is being grown there. What part of the country would you say we're seeing this mostly highlighted?
I've seen it in the south, in Punta Gorda. Yes, I've seen it
Sound
personally.
like yeah. It sounds
I'm not from there, but I've seen it.
Is there any strategy in your plan to combat things like the diseases that are affecting the citrus plants at the moment?
I think that is an approach that the agriculture department would take, or the Baja. I think it's Baja. Yes, our interest lies in more the productive sector.
Yes.
How can we ensure that the people who are already using this land either increase their production, increase efficiency of the land that they are using, as well as, like I said before, having that secondary income.
But also, we must also incorporate and keep in mind the restoration part of it. So just as what my colleague said, yes, it is production, but it is the way you do things. It is the change in mentality, in culture, in technique. And at the same time, you improve your livelihood because you might be, initially perhaps a bigger investment, but the return would be higher at the end, and you would still improve your soil production. You will maintain that healthy soil that you need for production. So it is a combination of that and the production sector that we need to look. And like we said, through our National Landscape Restoration Strategy, there is a feasibility study, a financial analysis, cost-benefit analysis that clearly states, if I cut one tree or if I change this is the amount of investment I need to do. This is the return I will have in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. So we have that basis. So that's one of the things that we are using to try to promote it. But apart from that, like we mentioned, this is a global and a regional effort. So what we're trying to do, especially like this week, launching, which is, like I said, very important, launching our strategy. For us, it's a very huge milestone that we are achieving. Trying to find investment opportunities. Projects would invest with the NDCs, to ensure that we have the carbon credits. Those are the markets that we need to tap in.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of projects out there that we can attract. So this is a roadmap as to how we can attract the investments.
So you are about to launch it in this
This morning.
after
morning.
you
After
get out this show?
Yes, our minister will be the official launching.
We're officially launching our national landscape restoration strategy.
Yes.
And along with that, the pilot project that comes under it.
Yeah.
So the pilot project is the one I mentioned before with the Yakshi Conservation Trust. It's an agroforestry concept or approach. And we have just about 30 farmers that utilize the land in a forest reserve.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, if you're familiar with our forest laws and regulations, you know that no one can live or reside within a forest reserve. But this has been an agreement that's been made between the government or the Belize Forest Department, the Yakshi Conservation Trust, and then the Chaya Cacao Growers Association that utilize a certain amount of acres, I think it's 389 acres, within this forest reserve, and they are responsible for keeping this land healthy and restoring it.
Yes.
So they incorporate cacao in their agroforestry approach, and within or between the cacao, then they have other crops that they use for their livelihood.
Yeah.
So they are both creating income and surviving for their livelihoods through the crops that they grow.
Yeah, and you know, very interesting, the topic at B, but one of the things I think that we should always look at as well is the encroachment into our lands by neighboring countries, which simply means that we need to, when it comes to the Forest Department, need to continue to strengthen that. We say this for the fact that we continue to lose land and we continue to lose our forest when things like that happen. What are we doing in trying to stop this or nip this at the bud?
Okay, through different initiatives, which is a bit different than this, we work through the Selva Maya project, which is we work in coordination with Mexico, Belize, and Guatemala, and our main focus is transboundary. So what we try to do is work with our counterparts from those countries to try to see what activities we can do, a public awareness that we can do, and things to try to halt the deforestation and the encroachment in our boundaries. I mean, between Belize and Guatemala, because we do have between Mexico and Belize as well. Yes. So those are other project initiatives that we have beside what we are talking about today, which is the National Landscape Restoration Strategy.
Are there any conversations or hoping to have conversations with other members of the community, both in Latin America and the Caribbean, in terms of how you all were able to achieve your numbers for the bond challenge? And I ask this because, like you rightfully mentioned, it was a science-based research initiative. Other countries have different landscapes, other countries have different soil chemistry and so forth. So are you all going to be presenting this as well today?
We do have opportunities to exchange our experiences with those countries in our region, in the Sika region. And the pilot project I've been mentioning was as a result of one of those conferences where we met with sponsors, with funding agencies, and we were able to get this opportunity through the German corporation and GIZ. It's a German word, I can't say it. The German government and corporation, and as well as other entities that have assisted us along the way in the formulation of the restoration strategy, such as the IUCN, the Selva Maya project, the World Resources Institute, and many other organizations who hopefully we will have representatives of today so that we can showcase what we have been able to do through their assistance of this funding.
Why should countries buy in on this?
Everyone wins when you invest in nature.
Yeah.
I agree, but also, yes.
I think one of the key things is the livelihood aspect of it. If we continue degrading our lands, if we continue degrading our forests, at the end we won't have where we can plant, how we can survive. So I think that is one of the bottom lines that we do have to, that is something that we need to ensure. Protecting our forests will, or our lands, as the agro and forest landscape, will actually help us improve our livelihood.
Do you feel that investors see Belize as the right place to invest?
I feel, yes, it's a very good question. My personal opinion, I believe yes.
Yes.
Because we have, one, it is small. yes, we have a bit of challenges with maybe some of our laws, but we have this niche. We are at the center whereby we are very well advanced when it comes to scientific-based protocols. So I think that, yes, they do see it as a place that we can invest, both looking like what CEO mentioned earlier at the mangrove sector. We have the wetland sector, we have the forest sector. So we're looking at a very good combination of both marine and terrestrial. So yes, I do believe that it is a very strong area for investment.
Well, fortunately, the National Landscape Restoration Strategy encompasses all those ecosystems because mangroves are forests too.
Of course.
Yes, they are.
So it encompasses those different ecosystems such as pine savannas, broadleaf forests, the coastal ecosystems such as the mangrove forest, and it provides different opportunities to do restoration, and those are also opportunities for investment. We are moving into the era where we want to introduce Belize into the carbon market, where we can be able to sell carbon credits. And well, yes, sell them because we won't be buying them. We have enough forests to sell them. So the process is that we first have to start with our laws, our policies that can be able to back up those processes and then back up projects that will be able to invest in those and have that recycling of carbon credits in the market.
And we are ripe for that.
Yes.
Like you mentioned, we've got the forest, we've got our forestry reserve that is able to sustain us and be able for us to actually sell. And Florencia, you could jump in at any time. But what is expected at today's launch? I mean, this is a big one for us. This is a big opportunity for this country. What is expected at today's launch?
Well, given that one of the spaces is this Apollo 2040 initiative, and I want to make emphasis to this, is because we can't only sell ourselves as a country, but given the amount of hectares that we're committing to, when we look at it at that 10 million hectare goal that we have as a region, then all of these, the launching of the strategy shows or reinforces our commitment to the region that yes, we are providing these 130,000 hectares to the region, and where we can't get investment as a country, we can look for that regionally as a region, get that investment, because 10 million hectares, I mean, that's a lot of hectares of land that you're looking at. And so this strategy, having our partners here, having our SICA region representatives here, our other country representatives, really gives that push to our strategy, and seeing how that feeds into the regional strategy as a whole, and how we as a region and how Belize contributes to that initiative.
I know we've been talking about different strategies and so forth throughout this conversation, but when you're talking about restoration of degraded land, when you're talking about all of these hectares that we are hoping to restore and revive, what is the first step?
Well, the first step,
I mean, other than to get money.
The first step has already been completed, which is the strategy itself. Because the strategy defines specific actions that we have decided would be the most efficient, would have most cost benefit to complete these objectives of restoration, which all departments and agencies can participate, or who would be responsible for collaborating with to incorporate these activities. For example, in the agroforestry component, it would be both the forest department for the forest and the agriculture department, and many other different organizations that also work with agriculture, private sector that works with agriculture. So it takes all of that into consideration to how we can move forward. So the first step is complete. The guideline, the roadmap, that is going to tell us this is how you can do it. This is the most benefit.
Step two will be the people component, the socialization of this strategy. Let everyone be aware of the strategy, know the importance of the strategy, the good impact that it will give, and it will provide you at your home at the end of the day. So I think that would be the second step, the socialization of the strategy, and of course getting funds too.
Are you all doing an education campaign apart from coming on Open Your Eyes?
We have been doing it opportunistically. But we do intend to become more proactive or more aggressive in how much we can reach out to our audiences, to different audiences. Yes. We have already started with the government sector so that we are all aware of what is happening and what we're doing at the Forest Department with the National Landscape Restoration Strategy. And then we move on to the communities and our non-governmental organization partners. We have already started with socialization with them as well.
All right. Well, we've learned of opportunities for investment from you three ladies, and we're so grateful that you were able to join us this morning.
Good luck with your launch this morning.
Big good luck with today's launch.
They have to come back and tell us how it went.
Of course, as we continue to step foot in Central America and, of course, the Caribbean and leading the chant. Thank you guys so very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Well, John, we've been hearing about it.
Yep,
we've been talking about it.
The week of activities, the opportunities for investment.
And the name, the words that have been ringing in our ears since we got here. The Bond Challenge.
That's the conversation that will happen. We'll have a big panel on here to actually discuss that when we come back. Stay with us.